Leonard and I have known each other for well over 5 years. So Leonard, as I told you before, he was part of the original team that built the Partner Practice Builder tool. He worked with lots of our partners to help validate that the information that we were putting in there and the methodologies were valid and useful. I think you engaged with over 60 different Cisco partners all around the globe to actually be that hands-on consultant to walk them through the Partner Practice Builder. Prior to his consulting that he did with Partner Practice Builder, Leonard was also at one of our technology partners. So he was one of the leaders in driving their business. So he doesn't only understand it from a reseller and a Cisco side, he's been in your seat as well trying to figure out how to go to market. So we're absolutely thrilled to have Leonard here as part of the team sharing some of his knowledge and information with you. So with that,
thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. There's the clicker.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I hope it'll be beneficial to you. Thank you, Marcia. So as Denny mentioned, I'm here to introduce to you the newly released Resource Center. And to do that, we're going to talk just briefly about some challenges that you're probably living every day and what the objectives are related to those. And then I want to give you an overview of the Resource Center and then take you on a kind of a scenic tour inside. I'm not going to take you through the whole thing. I don't like to see people sleeping, but I will give you enough information, hopefully, to get you interested enough to get into it, take a look at it, and go from there. So the challenges that I experienced in the year that I was working with a TDP partner are the same challenges that even reseller partners have. And that is, we've got so much information available to us. How do we get to market faster? Cisco is a great company, but it's a big company. It's a complex company. How do we more effectively integrate and work with Cisco? How can we get everything done with the resources we've got? Everybody's got finite resources. How do we break out of the masses? The market's full. How do we break out, stand out? And very importantly, how do we get started? So the objectives from all of that are to stand out, to break free of the mass, to differentiate yourself to the point where you get mind share from Cisco, from reseller partners, and from that to accelerate your ramp to market and to optimize the resources that you've got to do it efficiently. So that's what the Resource Center is all about. And here's the bit of rocket science that's in it, which indicates that there's no rocket science. It's basics. Effective planning plus focused execution. And from the looks of the group, you've all experienced both sides of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. So the key there is doing those fundamentals with the right tools. You notice the tools that are in those pictures, and I'm sure you've tried to do some of the things at home and around your office with the wrong tools. It's just not very fulfilling. So having these fundamentals in front of you, having the right tools to support those efforts is the way to go. It's the way to get started. So having said that, that's the prelude to the overview of the Resource Center. What I want to do is say, what is it first? It's kind of daunting sound. It's a Resource Center. But it is, as Denny pointed out, a prescriptive step-by-step approach to developing your go-to-market plan. It contains key elements that require organizational attention. And I'm going to talk about organizational focus as we go through. It requires organizational attention. And within it, the reason it's called a Resource Center are embedded links to key resources from Cisco and third parties that should provide more support, information, and considerations for your development. So what's the value of it? The value is it's a straightforward, simplified approach to building your CDN go-to-market plan based on Cisco best practices and key resources. That's not the value, that's just what it is. But that says it's based on Cisco's methodologies, both from Partner Practice Builder, IBLM, Steps to Success, and other programs that have been highly successful with partners. So based on those best practices and what other partners have seen, you should experience enhanced productivity by minimizing trial and error. In other words, this prescriptive steps will help you from going off the path and getting into areas that will chew up time without garnering much value. So the goal is to optimize your resources, and by doing that, help you achieve a faster ramp to market, profitability, and market share. Is that of interest? Okay, if I didn't get that, I thought I should just shut down. So, okay, that's what it's all about. Now, given that this is brand new, it's just been released and it's just been published as of last Thursday to the portal, it's kind of presumptuous for me to sit here and say there's the value that you will receive. I understand that. What Denny's going to talk about, and we'll talk about later today, is getting your support to get into it, to use it, and give us feedback to say these parts were very helpful. We have some gaps here. We really like some more support here. This part wasn't helpful for me. Understanding that it may be helpful for somebody else. So the elements of the go-to-market plan are all considered in here. But your use of it will provide great value both to us and then in return back to yourselves. So having said that, let's take a look at the construct. It's currently in a PowerPoint construct, and it has a prescriptive set of modules that are you step through, and under those modules are activities that support the build out of those modules. Now, if you look at those activities, and I'll point to these activities that are underneath the modules, each of those activities will contain notes. They're linked to notes inside the PowerPoint that provide more information, and in some cases, links to those external resources I referred to earlier. So taking a look at one, you've talked about SIP a lot, and you've dealt with it a lot. So I'm going to take a look at that one for an example. If you click on that hyperlink, it takes you to another page inside the PowerPoint that gives you more information on SIP. So there's a note, gives you information about it, and also why is it important to you? It's important to you because you probably know more about SIP than the reseller partners do. The reseller partners have been through variations of SIP over the years, and to get their attention, you may have to be the one that comes in and says, boy, have I got a deal for you. This SIP thing really works today. So to the extent that you can become educated, knowledgeable, and be in a position to explain to your chosen reseller partners that they have value from selling your solutions. Now, if you want to get more information, you can click on the link that's associated with it, and that will take you directly to in this case, the SIP page on Cisco.com. So throughout the Resource Center, the resources that you need are a finger click away. So they're available to you inside the Resource Center. They may take you outside and you'll come back to your PowerPoint, but you'll have the resources you need to fulfill the activities inside that module. Okay, so with that, let me give you a kind of a walkthrough on how you would use it. It is straightforward. It doesn't contain any rocket science. But as Denny pointed out, Cisco produces voluminous resource materials, and they're great. The problem is they're not all pertinent to you. You have to find the ones that are and find them quickly. That's part of that mitigating trial and error that I referred to earlier. So what we've tried to do is embed in here those resources that are most valuable to you at that point in time as you're building out your go-to-market plan. So let's take a look at the Resource Center itself. So there's the PowerPoint, and inside you've already seen the first three modules. It's prescriptive, which means they build on one another. Some of these activities you may have already accomplished. You may want to revisit them in the context of building out the go-to-market plan. There is a link to the next module so you can navigate within the PowerPoint itself. And if we take a look at the business planning section, now if we were to get started and use this to get started, every module has a suggested owner. It's going to be different for every one of you, but everyone has a suggested owner. In this case, that would be the CEO, president, or equivalent. And the reason for that is inside the note it says the push the wrong button. Every new business begins with planning that focuses on why are we doing this? What's the value to be derived? What's the investment? What's the cost? And the right resource to determine that with support from a team. That doesn't mean the CEO president would do it, but be responsible for driving that, because that person is going to own the resources and own the responsibility for committing those resources to the plan. Also going to be responsible for understanding what the investments are, the costs are, and committing to those. So at the beginning, it's going to be driven by executive sponsorship within your companies. Then you can return to the module, to the location you left. And the first activity under business planning is vision and mission. Again, not rocket science, but very, very important. You've probably already got one. I don't want to be presumptuous to say that companies don't do this, but it's important to make sure that you have a vision for the Cisco partnership. What's the driving factor? If we were doing this right now as a step-through exercise, we're saying we need a creation of a vision for the Cisco partnership, and that should include the reason we're spending the time, effort, resources on this project. Why are we doing this? It should be a concise statement of desired outcomes. What's your long-term desired return for doing this initiative? It should be organizationally socialized, so it garners alignment through the organization, it gets a common purpose. I talked about focus of the organization before. The vision statement has a lot to do with getting people rallying around a common goal. And then from that, you develop your mission statement. In other words, the short term, the more tactical, this is what we're setting out to do. This is how we're going to do it. And based on that, and I think very importantly, they should be written down. One anecdote, I met with a company, a reseller company, and he says, I have it in my head. I know exactly what it is. And I just encouraged him to share it with his own team that was around the table. And in the process, it took probably 20 minutes to articulate that, because it was, as most of us, a stream of consciousness that had real value to him, but really couldn't be articulated very concisely off the top of his head. So the objective is, once you know how difficult it is to write a 1 or 2 sentence statement around your value, that's the purpose. Drive that value, that vision statement to the point where it resonates, it rallies the troops, and you get the support of the broader organization. What we suggest is that you also socialize that with your team, even with a broader company, so that you engender that energy and enthusiasm and support for the project. And third party, there's a resource material on Wikipedia around vision and mission statements that's worthwhile if you want to take a look and support your efforts there. So let's say you're doing this, you've been through this is the first activity, and you're sitting there saying, we already have a vision statement. We already have a mission statement. We've shared it, we've published it, we're good to go. You just check it off. It's done. Somebody else may not have done it, that's why it's here. So we just want to make sure it's cared for, but if you've already done it, then you just go on to the next step. Go back to the plan and go to the next step, which in this case is the financial plan. So I'm not going to take you through each activity, but I will give you a high level that walkthrough, and I want to take you on one more little scenic route when we get to it. So the financial plan and the objectives and metrics are again part of that executive sponsorship responsibility. So the goal there is to understand what the costs, investments are, what the projected ramp to revenue is, what's the margin related to that, and the purpose of doing that at this step, to get an initial view, this is before you've even done your market analysis, before you've done your engagement with Cisco, is to get an idea of what that financial picture is going to look like. And the goal of this ultimately is to mitigate risks in execution. Yes, sir?
Sorry, it's okay to interrupt you.
Yes.
Who from Cisco, just while we're on financial plan and metrics, who from Cisco internally has access to this information?
That you're developing yourself?
Yeah.
This is downloaded to you.
Not in the tool?
No.
Okay, got
No.
it.
I will tell you, however, that on Partner Practice Builder, there's a portal. Yeah, and it can be worked on, and it's a secure site. So once you log in, you can sign up. But
Sorry, I thought this was actually going to
No, this right now is a PowerPoint. You can download it, and when you download it, you're working in your office. So the financial plan is the initial step. Then, based on your mission statement, you can sit around and develop with your team what are the objectives for each of the stakeholders in the organization, what are the metrics, how are you going to hold them accountable that this is, if it's important, then they're going to focus on it. The way to get focus on it is to create a metric for it. From that, we then go to market analysis and plan. More time is going to be spent by some others to talk about this, but this section just says where are we going to go to market first and why. And it's based on market analysis, SWOT analysis, and resulting from that, a market plan that articulates first, second, third, where we're going to market. Value propositions. Again, Axel Tex is going to talk some more about that. It's very important. We have an S behind value propositions. One size doesn't fit all. It doesn't necessarily fit all customers either, depending on whether it's a vertical supply chain for hospitals versus supply chains for aeronautic parts. So paying attention to value propositions and being able to articulate those, we've got resources in there to support the efforts of developing them, is important. And then going to the next module, you'll see, in this case, marketing messaging, taking that value proposition, that set of value propositions, and from that, developing the marketing messaging related to your storefront for marketplace. Your slicks, presentations, proposals should be consistent across that initiative. Case studies and success stories. Denny mentioned that. This isn't just a check to say we'd like to have them. This is here from a marketing perspective, messaging perspective, to develop a programmatic approach to developing case studies and success stories. Rather than going after the fact and saying, where can we find some good news, and trying to get somebody's attention when they've already bought, this is an approach that says we want to make this a part of our ongoing marketing messaging. This is also carried through the sales organization. Social media, how to best take advantage of social media. Cisco's got some interesting resources around that. And then very, very, dare I say again, very important, Cisco engagement model. And you're working through this because you're here, right? So you've got the BU organization, the field sales organization, the field marketing organization, channel management organization. All of those have different structure, different care-abouts. And one resource that may be of interest, I'll just click to field sales, is it gives you an explanation of very short note of field sales organization, but there is a resource, a leading practice inside Steps to Success entitled Optimizing a Relationship with Cisco Field Resources. And inside, if you click on that, you can download that leading practice, and as part of that, it begins with an organization chart, roles, responsibilities, metrics, motivations. So these should be helpful in trying to understand. I know from my time, it's been 7 years ago when I was working with a TDP partner. I just got kind of thrown into the briar patch, and I was trying to figure out who did what, and somebody mentioned OIP, and I went, those types of things. So that's why this is here, to try to help clear some of that fog of war out and gives you some clarity on what the organization looks like, who's important to you, what their care-abouts are, therefore what their value proposition should be. And by the way, just to point out, Cisco's organization tends to change. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it tends to change from time to time to time. So there's some things in here that may be from the last iteration, but it's still pertinent from a structure standpoint, from a methods, roles, responsibilities, and motivations. So you see metrics and motivations. And each of these leading practices contains its own little action plan, which you may or may not exercise, given that you're doing this as a part of a larger action plan. Okay, I'll take a breath and just digesting. So if we go back, I just want to take you through this walkthrough. All of this understanding of Cisco's organization, their roles, responsibilities, structure, what their motivations are, and how they're measured, how they're financially rewarded. All those things are very important to you because you need to understand them to be able to gain mind share, to get influence, because if you can affect those things that are important to them, as you know, you'll get some attention. So given that, once you do that, it's important to create a plan that can be executed and put under management that will take those relationships that you're developing throughout the various organizations in Cisco, aligning them with resources in your company, developing a plan of how and who and when and how frequent and so forth, what's the subject matter, and putting that under management so that it doesn't just become something that you've asked somebody to do and they do it when they have time. And by the way, let me back up just to say there's a partnering plan. There's a leading practice on effective partnering. And this is pertinent in any partnering relationship, so I think you'll find some value in that leading practice as well. Next modules, you'll see we get to sales enablement. I'll step through briefly. Solution sales process. As Denny said, it's not about selling products, it's about selling solutions, and that goes for Cisco and it goes for you. You're trying to sell solutions that meet business problems, that solve them or help affect them positively. So there's information in there on the solution sales process. Ideal customer profile. Once you've done your market analysis and you've started targeting where you want to go to market, it's worthwhile to look at what the characteristics are of an ideal customer. It's a big world out there, and if you can narrow the focus more and more, it'll help you with your Cisco field sales team, your channel resellers, so there's some information on developing that. And then the business care-abouts. If you're targeting the hospitals, healthcare clinics, aeronautic parts, supply chain, what are the issues that they're dealing with today in their industry? Becoming conversant in those, educated in those is important. So there's information on that. And then lastly, sales scripts. How do you help enable Cisco channel reseller partners who their sales team is already loaded with stuff that they make money from, include your information, your product information, your care-abouts for the industry to make it compelling. You help them by developing sales scripts and incorporating those into their processes. And lastly, it's always last, but it's critically important. You've heard execution is king, and that is focusing all of this planning, effective planning process into an actionable plan. So that plan, you see, I'm going to point out here, you've got to finalize the financial model. As you've been through the planning process, you've probably focused more on where you're going to go to market, what Cisco resources you're going to be working with. You'll probably have more intelligence on what your financial implications are, investment cost, potential ramp to revenue. So you can update your financial plan at this point to say, with more information, this is what my financial model looks like. And again, I want to say it's not just for planning, it's not for accountants, it's for managing the business, mitigating risks in execution. You don't want surprises on the cost side when you get 3 months into it. So as much as you can to articulate, think through, contemplate what the financial implications are, the better. And you'll notice it says project management. Somebody should own the execution model. So there's an addendum before I click in the action plan. These modules I've talked through are the critical path for developing the go-to-market plan. There are some other things that I think are of interest to you, may be of value to you, but aren't necessarily critical path. OIP, VIP, TIP. Those are all in the addendum. Cisco's services engagement plan, which has just been published. So there is an addendum that's got more information that puts those resources at your fingertips. But if you look at the action plan for a moment, I just want to emphasize that all of this planning, this effective planning, is done for the purpose of moving it into an executionable, an actionable plan. That plan, we think, should be developed along the lines of standard project management practices. And for that purpose, there is a third-party resource available to support that, provide more detail, but putting that under an owner, in this case, a euphemism, Cisco partnership manager, whoever that may be in your organization, but somebody that can own it, has a responsibility and authority to drive the stakeholders against their commitments on actions and on time, so that you can get this done in the most effective and efficient way possible. So, in summary, the objectives of the Go-to-Market Resource Center are to provide you the right tool, one of the right tools in your quiver to enhance your productivity by mitigating or minimizing trial and error, and to help you achieve a faster ramp to market profitability and repeat business. And to wrap up, it's located now on the, yes, sir.
How customizable is it? For example, if we have specific certification that the partner needs to go through, can I put that in there? I mean,
It's a PowerPoint, so you can create a template in Word, and we're looking at doing that in a formalized template that you can actually plug and play with. But you can plug those in to add that as a module with activities. So if you're familiar with Project Plan, Microsoft Project Plan, a Microsoft project, within that you can actually add those activities that are important, put a resource name by it, put a date by it, and make it a part of your plan. And I'd recommend that. These are the baseline critical path modules and activities. You may have some more. You may have certifications you have to achieve. You may have some bills you have to pay with Cisco. Not that that happens, but you may have some of those things that are critical path for you to get there. Plug those into your plan and make them a part of the action plan. And then just point out here that it's now located on the portal. And so you can access it, and we encourage that and encourage your feedback. And with that, I say thank you very much. Appreciate your time and attention.